Ryan, welcome to Ahrefs podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah. An honor and privilege to be on the podcast with you. Normally, I'm just listening to it.
So the story of this episode is the fact that you have devised a pretty cool workflow for creating content with AI, which you actually use to publish some articles at Ahrefs blog written by AI, and no one kind of noticed because those articles were this good. And when I shared on LinkedIn a screenshot of the steps that you're taking to walk AI, because it's not an easy process to create amazing content with AI. When I shared the screenshot of it on LinkedIn and asked people if they want to see it, what did we get? 400 comments on this post or something. So now we have to record this episode and show people your AI content production process.
Yeah, so thank you for making me do that.
So let's start from the results. So before we go into the process, I want to talk a little bit about the results, about the quality of content that you get this way. Well, obviously we published it on Ahrefs blog, so it's good enough. But I know that you're also tracking it in a portfolio format at Ahrefs. We have this feature called portfolios where you can track a custom list of URLs and you're adding all your AI-generated articles there. And they're starting to rank for some keywords already, so Google kind of likes them.
Yeah, exactly that. I was just looking at one of them. It's at number 4 for its target keyword at the moment, which we'd be happy with any article that we created for the most part. A lot of them are getting good Google Discover traffic as well, which is something I don't always see with content. So yeah, I think compared to the human written content we've published at the same sort of time, the same time scale, I can't really notice any difference in the performance, to be honest. Kind of cool.
So basically, we're about to share the process that allows you to create the kind of content that actually brings traffic and some business results. Other than just like publish and forget about it, and it would be covered with dust because no one is visiting that content because it's so bad it doesn't rank anywhere. That sounds good to me. So I didn't see like your process, so this would be the first time you're showing it to me. And we'll see if I have any questions or my kind of typical skepticism. But yeah, given that the content is published on Ahrefs blog, and I actually read a few of these articles myself, they were really good. So yeah, I don't think that I would have much skepticism. I'm very keen to see a process. Let's go.
Basic setup. I'm using ChatGPT for this, and I'm creating a project. So I have the Ahrefs blog project, and hopefully we can maybe slightly blur out some of the side chats because people don't need to know that I'm looking up how to cook aubergine in my roast dinner. But there you go. And I think the really important part of this is the project files. This is why I like using a project. If you just ask for a blog post from any LLM, normally it comes back like pretty terrible. It's not interesting. It's not well written. It's just the worst kind of content marketing. So what I've actually done is basically taken our human editorial process. So taken the existing documentation we already had to guide writers on how to write well for Ahrefs. So this is stuff from how to create an outline for the first time, how to edit an outline, the kind of guidance for me, how to write, how to mention Ahrefs products, how to add WordPress shortcodes, like every single facet of the actual like human written process. Each stage of that is converted into a written process, and that is then uploaded as an individual document to the project file. So basically contained
So we see 7 files, right? Am I counting correctly? 7 files in this ChatGPT project, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And so we have also a very basic like instruction here as well, which I think a lot of this is probably fluffy and doesn't actually help the model, but parts of it are useful. It basically tells the model to refer back to the project context, those files we uploaded during every conversation we create. So I'm always trying to nudge the model back to the documentation and say, follow the process that I've provided with you.
Interesting. I kind of thought when I was looking at your diagram with steps, and when you told me that you are using documents for each step of the process, I thought you would have like a custom GPT for each step and only upload one document at a time, but you uploaded all 7 of them and you kind of refer to each of them at different stages of the process, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, ChatGPT is quite good at actually following along through the stages. Something like Claude, for example, I've been testing this out with. It just tries to do everything at once. It just runs the whole process in one go. Whereas this, I can explicitly say, right, start with the first step of the process. We're doing the content brief. Give me a chance to provide feedback and then move on to the next step of the process. So yeah, I basically act like the editor for this. The model is working through a very similar like reasoning and writing process to exactly what a human would do, and it's giving me small windows to put input into that and say, nudge it in the right direction.
Okay, we'll get into project files later to see what's there, maybe once we go through the actual steps. But let's quickly go through the instructions. What are the key things are there? Yeah, you said, I see you're a senior content marketer or something. What are the key things you're telling to AI about this project or this process?
Yeah, I think... So generally, I'm trying to provide like a high-level sense of what we value in our content. Things about being persuasive, about being detailed and comprehensive. I really do think a lot of this is probably fluff. I don't think a lot of it works. I think a very hard thing about prompting is knowing what are the tiny parts of the prompt that have a really big impact and which are the ones that just have no impact whatsoever.
Because you have 7 files there already that explain what you expect in terms of editorial. This is why I'm thinking, what is there to add to the instructions window?
Something that has been very important is this bit here. I've actually experimented with taking this out and seeing how it impacted it. Roleplay is someone who has deep in the trenches experience with this topic, someone who's used Ahrefs tools to solve real problems and could translate that into strategic advice. One of the things I've noticed between a good first draft from AI and a terrible first draft is how often it tries to talk from a place of experience, where it says, when I use this advice or when I use this tool. Obviously, that is hallucinated because AI can't actually go and use these tools, but quite often the experiences it shares are similar to the experiences I've had, or it's a chance for me to kind of slightly adjust what it said to reflect an actual experience I've had. And it made me realize that so much of the content we write at Ahrefs is focused on this. We're not just passively commentating on advice. We're actually saying, okay, we tested this out, or when I was using this, or I know from first-person experience. So actually adding that into the instructions for the project, goes a long way to making it sound and feel like an actual Ahrefs article.
Let me clarify here. So this is not for AI to hallucinate that it has experience, that it did something to make it look more authoritative. This is for you as an editor and kind of co-author of the piece to find proper spots where you can jump in and say, oh, I actually can say this. Yeah, I have experience with this, and like you edit a little bit, maybe edit some kind of different story, but it kind of finds places in the copy where it would be appropriate to say something like this, and then you just make sure that you, as the kind of the ultimate author of the article, can say it. Because I've seen when people publish AI generated content. And they do say things like that, like write from your experience, blah, 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 show that you're authority. And AI would hallucinate that it actually like did some stuff, like it worked with clients, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but that's not true. So like it looks legit, but it's not true because this person just said that they used AI to auto-generate this article. So yeah, I want to be very clear with that. Don't just kind of mislead people with those AI claims. Make sure that you can say them yourself.
Yeah, and actually that goes back to probably the most important part of this entire process, which is actually working out when it's an appropriate process to use. I don't use this for article topics that I know nothing about, where I have absolutely no experience and I can't evaluate whether the article's good or sensible or coherent. So I think you talked about this previously, but I try to use this for topics where there's already a lot of information out in the world on these topics. So there's a wealth of information, accurate, good information for the LLMs to draw on. And also I need to have a sense of what I want the end goal of the article to look like. I need to have an opinion on it. I need to ideally have some experience that I can use to judge whether this is a coherent and useful article or not. So yeah, I don't write about things I have no experience in, because who would I be to judge whether it's actually good or not?
So we have those documents which will dig deeper as you keep reviewing the process. We have this kind of system prompt with some instructions. Where do you start with this?
So this is a good example. This is the conversation I had that led to a finished article that we've published. And I actually quite like this article as well. This was a guide to Python for SEO. So the way the process starts is I basically paste in a content brief as the very first step. And the way I see a lot of people use AI is they create an article and they spend a bunch of time kind of post hoc editing the article, trying to get it up to a good standard. I don't think that's a very good process, because there's a limit to how much you can polish a finished draft. Like, you don't have that much creative freedom to actually make big changes to it without taking a ton of time. And it's also not very fun. Like, nobody wants to spend their day, polishing awful AI drafts and trying to make them sound human. So the thing this process does is it tries to front load all of the input and direction and guidance right at the very start of the process, and then kind of get out of the way and let the AI generate the article based on that. So first thing in the brief, target keyword. These are keyword targeted articles. Then working title. I always think this is a really important thing to do, because you're basically setting the end goal of what you want to arrive at. So in this case, very simple, how to get started with Python for SEO. Like, not hard to come up with that title to begin with. And then key points to include. I think this is a very important section. This is where I basically say, from my own, desire and my knowledge, what are the things I expect to see in this finished article? And this is why this is not like a cheap process that I think anyone could do, because it is dependent on having a sense of like the conclusion you want to arrive at. So I said, my motivation for writing this was that actually Python can help automate things. It's a good starting point for more technical skills. And also mention that I have experience using this Python course. I want that to be the context for the article. That's why I'm writing it. I wanted to cover the core concepts needed to actually use Python, recommend some simple Python projects. And I thought, hey, Patrick from our team, he knows tons about Python. He's got loads of cool scripts. Let's have a section where we include that in the article. So right from the outset, I've said this has to be in the article at some point. Like, your job is to include these things. And then to help it rank, what I do is I run an AI content helper report for every target keyword. I basically just copy paste the recommended topics that identifies in here as like optional context for the LLM to include.
Okay, for those who don't know what AI Content Helper is, it's a tool in Ahrefs. You feed it a keyword, it pulls the top ranking search results, and then it pulls the topics from those pages and gives you kind of, in a way, like a topical map, so to say, of what the top ranking search results are covering in terms of different topics, different subtopics of a larger topic. So you take information from it and paste it into your content brief, right?
Yeah, exactly that. So this is very, very long. There's tons of stuff here. So there's the core topic of content marketing automation should be mentioned. Maybe these are some relevant terms you can include. This is all stuff I do as a human writer. Like, I use this as context for my own writing process. So I thought it was useful to provide it to the LLM for additional context as well.
It looks like very clumsy copy paste. We don't have the export button, right, in the AI Content Helper.
No. If we did, that would be.
This is why it looks so badly formatted. Okay.
And then last thing, relevant Ahrefs products features to reference. So there's a step in the process where the LLM has to go and find relevant products to mention anyway, but sometimes if there's something I explicitly want to include, I will just bullet out a single point here. So in this case, mention using Python to call the Ahrefs API for data collection and research, because that's a cool use case.
Sorry for interrupting the interview, but I have a very quick announcement to make. This October, we're bringing Ahrefs Evolve, our 2-day marketing conference, to sunny San Diego. And Ryan Law is actually one of our speakers at this event. So if you're enjoying our conversation so far, consider getting a ticket to Ahrefs Evolve in San Diego, where you'll get a chance to hang out with Ryan and ask him your own questions about content marketing and AI. Go to our website at ahrefsevolve.com to see more details about the event and get your ticket. Again, it's ahrefsevolve.com this October in San Diego. Now back to the episode. So this brief is essentially very manual. So you create it yourself. You're not, again, using AI to create me a brief for Python for SEO.
Yeah, I have the template, which doesn't change. And then, I spend maybe 5 minutes just bulleting out the things I expect to see in there and want to include. So my input is still very important to that process, I think.
But again, looking forward and speaking of the AI revolution, so you're taking quite a bit of information from AI Content Helper, which is our tool that kind of gives you the topical coverage of whatever topic you want to write about. And I think in the future, speaking again of MCP servers and API, we could probably add this to our MCP server, and you could just tell AI, use Ahrefs MCP to pull the kind of topical information from AI Content Helper from this topic and use all the relevant terms. So whatever you do right now manually, probably in a few months from now, we can potentially add it, and this little bit would be automated.
And then off the LLM goes to the next step of the process, which is actually turning that content brief into an outline. This is something I get all of our writers to do, and it's basically a bullet point list of the structure of the core ideas of the article.
And you have, in one of the project documents, you have a document on how to create an outline.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's actually a blog post I wrote. So, outline, this is the one we want to look at.
It's pretty short.
Yeah, this is one of the shorter ones. There's actually, I don't think that much that you need to do to have a good outline. Draft all the main section headers, ensure they logically support the thesis. Basically, if you add together all the headers, does it amount to answering the question you've posed by the title? That's a very important thing to do. Very minor stylistic stuff like avoid ing words in headers because it makes it more passive and less interesting. Bullet points under each header to support the main idea. This is quite a good one as well. This is something I think good writing does. Start with the bottom line up front. So open every section with the core idea articulated in the simplest possible way for the reader to understand. Then elaborate on that with additional, supporting ideas, examples, opinions, that kind of thing, and keep it brief as well. And because the introduction, I think, is such an important part of every article, there's specific steps here. Provide a strong hook idea, what is an opening sentence that might get somebody's interest in the topic. Introduce the thesis and hint at what's coming. So what are you actually going to cover in the article? And similar thing with the conclusion, summarize the core argument, offer an extra insight or next step. Straight up, it's got a hook idea. I used to think Python was only for data scientists and developers, but after finishing Replic's 100 Days of Python, I realized it's one of the most powerful skills an SEO can learn, and it's never been easier to get started. And I quite like that. It's using my experience as the motivation for it, which is good. This is something that's going to be published under my name. And it appeals to this idea that Python's scary and complicated, but actually it's a lot easier than you might think. And this article will tell you how to do that. So I think it's quite appealing. And then here we go, the substantive headers. These are the sections it wants to cover. So we've got why learn Python as an SEO. And the bottom line up front helps you automate repetitive tasks, unlock large-scale insights, and build technical skills. And then it's got the supporting point. Build a technical foundation for writing scripts. You don't need to become a software engineer, all that kind of thing. It's the core concepts I asked for. Got the bluff again, what Python is, choosing a development environment, basic building blocks, working with data. I asked it for some beginner-friendly projects, so it's come up with three rather. Look like if pages are using HTTPS, check for missing image alt attributes, scrape titles and meta description tags. These are basic, simple, useful things you can do with Python, so that seems pretty useful so far. And it included Patrick Stock's free Python scripts for SEO. And he's actually found a few from Patrick's GitHub, which was pretty cool. I could have provided those manually, but it actually did a decent job at finding them itself. Mm-hmm. And then the segue to the Ahrefs API, and then a quick summary.
Okay, and we have the outline at this point. What is the next step?
So I review that, I look at it, and I think, what do I like? What sucks about this? And I provided very high-level feedback. In this case, I didn't like the intro that much. I suggested an alternate format to use. So literally just a few words, but to say, rewrite it using the PAS formula, which is problem, agitate, solution. Like really standard copywriting formula, like a ChatGPT understands it. Most people understand and know it as well. And you can see that. So it came up with the problem, which is that Python feels intimidating if you're not a developer. The agitation is where you kind of up the ante, make it even more dramatic. And the solution is how the article will deliver on that and help you do it. And that's exactly what it's done with that structure there.
Okay, you don't have any system document for writing intros, right?
No, none specifically, no. And you have to nudge it occasionally, like... where is the full outline? It deleted the rest of it. I had to put it back in. It's not always the most willing counterpart, but it's then added it back in. So now we have a fairly decent article. And I said, cool, turn the outline into an article draft. And obviously it then said failed to edit. So I had to say, try again. And it then did work. And that is when we go on to the next step of the process. So we have an actual document, which is how to write for Ahrefs. So I think a lot of these as well, they're combinations of existing documents we had that the team already use. In some cases, I've asked AI to turn articles or resources into an SOP for us to include. So yeah, very simple things. Include specific examples for every point you make. Include first-person experiences and anecdotes. Include opinions. Be detailed and exhaustive in everything you write. Every article should be MECE, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Use the bluff principle. They're all I think the important part about this is being able to take, good writing and distill it down to maybe 10 core principles that are simple enough that the LLM can actually understand and act on, which is obviously what I've tried to do here.
It's kind of odd that you keep pushing AI to act and write from its experience when it doesn't really have any. So it's kind of faking its experience. But I like what you suggested, where essentially you can take some of the best articles from your blog or some of your best writing. You can feed it to AI and ask, can you write me the guidelines based on this content that you see from me? And then use those guidelines to create more of such content. I like that.
Another important part about this is I've actually included some examples of a good content. So these are not whole articles, but these are sections from a few different writers on our blog of good articles that can be used as context and inspiration for it. And I think this is actually kind of important as well, because from an AI content detecting point of view, because this is basically where we are changing the output in such a way that it's not very easily identifiable as the base LLM model. It's actually being inspired by a different writing pattern, like a human writing pattern, and that changes the content that comes out at the end. So as an example from me, example from Despina.
Are these links to the articles?
I think they are, yes, they are valid
So
links.
basically you give ChatGPT a system document, and this system document is linking to more articles.
Yeah.
Can we be sure that it follows the links and actually takes the content? Maybe it would be better to just drop the actual content into the document.
Yeah, I don't think it will follow these links, which is why I've pulled out example. Oh, you know what? No, I actually haven't. Well, there you go. Here's a way we could improve that process. I think you're right. I think what I did was I asked AI to summarize the writing style maybe of these articles. But something I do want to do is work out how we can use the entire Ahrefs blog as context for content generation. I think that would be a very cool thing to do.
So you gave it pretty much the same guidelines that we're using internally for our writers, so that they would know what's our style, how do we write, what makes our content awesome. And it wrote a draft, I imagine.
And I really like using the canvas in ChatGPT. This is why I still use this instead of Claude, which a lot of people think is better. It's kind of like a Google Doc, and I can actually highlight parts and leave editing comments, and it will edit it like a human would. So you can get quite granular with specific things.
Wait, I already see it added short codes.
Yes, it did. Yes, so this is another thing. It is generally fairly good at working through the process. Sometimes it does go slightly mad and will jump like 3 steps ahead and add things that you were not ready for, like shortcodes, as you can see here.
Maybe this is what can be used in the kind of system prompt, that you would say, I have like 7 documents and I want you to reference and act according to just one of them at every step of the way. And like specifically say, don't add shortcodes until I approve the draft or something like this. Because like when you're still working on the draft and when you're giving feedback to AI, you probably don't want this visual noise in the form of different shortcodes for WordPress. You want to add them at the very last step when everything else is settled. So maybe that would help to make the process kind of more step by step, and so that AI wouldn't get ahead of itself.
Yeah. And there are, maybe this is not even the right place for shortcodes. AI made a script for me that in a Google Doc, I can just press a button and it will go in and add the shortcodes at the end as well. So that, there are different ways to handle that.
And giving feedback right in that canvas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It writes it kind of right there.
So you can see some examples of the type of feedback I've done. They're very simple, basic things. Like if something was vague and unclear, I've said edit to explain what this means. And it says, you're done. I've updated the description of Replit to explain what a browser-based IDE is and why it's useful. And if there's like an idea I think we should add, I can just mention that very briefly. I can say, hey, this is good. Expand it into a full section. So again, this is very like writery, hand-holdy editing, but it's so much faster. Like I don't have to be the one writing it. I just send a little nudge, a little prompt, and straight away the article is shaped in the direction I want it to be shaped.
And it's essentially the same thing you do when our blog writers send you their draft article. You leave essentially the same comments, but then it takes a while for them to fix those. And here you see the result pretty much instantly.
And I don't have to be as nice to the AI as I am to our writers as well, which is, it doesn't take too long to do this. There's a lot of comments, but I don't know, we're talking maybe half an hour for this discrete stage of the process.
Well, I guess it's good that people would read the actual AI article that they're about to publish on their blog start to finish before publishing it. This is something I think I was watching a talk by Andrei Karpathy, the guy who was in charge of AI for Tesla, and he published a lot of great YouTube videos about how AI works and ChatGPT works. And like his ideology, the way I understood it at least, is that no AI output should be kind of published or kind of should see the world without a human person reviewing it first. So I think he was making some examples along the lines of if there's a system that generates, 1,000 different banner ads for your advertising campaign, but it's not sustainable for a person, for a human being to review all 1,000. So he's suggesting that AI should generate things only in quantities that people are able to review, because it still hallucinates. And I believe the engineers, the scientists are unsure if the hallucinating problem is ever going to go away, which means if a human editor is not reviewing the AI output and just like publishing whatever is there, it can very well generate something that is just not true or something that you wouldn't want to publish. So I guess it does make sense that whenever you generate an AI article as an editor or as a person who is going to publish it, especially under your own name, you want to review it start to finish. So that makes all the sense for me.
Yeah, especially when it's being published under my name as well, I do feel a sense of ownership over this content. People expect a certain level of quality, and I don't want to mislead people and put, rubbish out. I did that when I was like 15 and trying to learn how to blog in the first place. Hopefully I've grown through that now. And then when I'm happy with the draft, you just say on to the next stage, in which case
the next stage is...
Well, so sometimes if the article draft is not very good or I'm still struggling with it, I will run it through like an editing stage. So in some ways, it's kind of automating what I've tried to do, where I have a whole document of like editing principles.
But you just added a bunch of comments to the Canvas document in ChatGPT where it kind of fixed it on the fly, and you just said next stage. So does it know which next stage to go?
It went straight to shortcodes at this point, adding the shortcodes in.
That's it, and this is the article you published.
And that is the article I published, yeah. I think the thing I have learned doing this is that, ChatGPT does struggle to follow processes end to end in a repeatable way. Like, it does need to be nudged from time to time. And quite a lot of the time, I think it uses the documents I provided as context for, instead of waiting to the end to say, let's add in some Ahrefs products, which doesn't work very well. It works much better when you do that as part of the actual initial outlining process. So quite often I'll comment to say, you've only included Keywords Explorer, let's mention Site Explorer here as well, and build it into the article right from the outset.
Okay, so since we went through this process from start till the end, I think it would make sense to go back to your diagram and review which steps you had there, because the diagram is what attracted attention of people on LinkedIn. So I guess let's review all the documents step by step. So the starting prompt, is this the same thing that you use for instructions? The instructions in...
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same. So these, I basically write all the individual documents in my notes because I can write them in Markdown. And I just export them as a folder and dump them into ChatGPT. So this is kind of like where most of them live. So
we discussed that probably in that kind of system prompt, it makes sense to tell it to kind of go step by step and not kind of move between steps until you approve the next one, and basically outline what the steps are. So first, I will give you a brief and you will generate an outline. Then once we agree on the outline, you will generate a draft. Then you would add internal links. So yeah, maybe outlining the steps could be useful. I don't know. Let's see the next step, content brief.
Yep. So we've already seen what this looked like pasted in, but this is like the kind of template I use. So this is just a very quick way for me to add in the information I think the LLM needs to do a good job and just dump it into the document very quickly. As you can say, it's not formatted very well, the AI content helper stuff, but that's fine for AI.
We also discussed outline. You also shared what are the key elements of the outline, how to make it good, how to structurally edit an outline. This is something we didn't look into.
So this, some of the projects, actually, the AI does do a good job at basically works to this checklist. It says, right, we'll move on to the next step. I'll review according to your editing checklist. And it looks at these principles. And this is quite a useful thing. Again, not too many here, but these are very important things. These are what I look for when I'm looking at an outline that somebody has sent to me. So MECE is probably the most important framework. All the ideas and the bullet points together should be mutually exclusive, so they don't overlap one another too much. If the title of the post is how to do keyword research, you don't want a subheader that is how to do keyword research. It doesn't make sense to do that.
Unless you're doing SEO in 2022.
Or maybe 2025 is the way things are going with LLMs. But yeah, exactly. And also collectively exhaustive. So that just means that together, all of the points you cover are sufficient to answer the question you want to answer, cover the topic you want to in useful detail. And that is honestly about 80% of, I think, structural editing, making sure you actually sufficiently cover the topic at hand. Pyramid principle, this is another thing. AI is very good at this. Stick to one idea per section if you can, support it with evidence, and then after that, offer additional context and elaboration. This is something that was popularized by Barbara Minto. He's a former McKinsey consultant, and it's a great thinking framework. Is each section appropriately weighted relative to total word count? Quite often, bad content, the really interesting ideas will have 50 words dedicated to them, and the really boring, obvious stuff will have 1,000 words dedicated to it. I always try and make sure that's not the case, and actually make sure the most important ideas have the greatest word count, make sure it's balanced in that way. Do we deliver on what was promised in the title, and do the headers provide clear benefits and explicit advice? Basically, can you read the headers and understand what the article is about and get something useful just from the headers? So again, very simple things that AI can actually follow instruction and can do and understand, and very useful for improving the content.
Okay, next step, how to write for Ahrefs. This is the guidelines that we also already reviewed, and also where you give some examples of the articles, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And there's quite a lot of overlap in some of these, so I think I can probably like tighten up and simplify this process. Then I have a specific thing about how to mention Ahrefs products and features, because obviously that's very important to the type of content we create, because the business value is something we care about. We always try and promote it. So I think I've basically given it an overview of, we aim to educate generally, but we also showcase Ahrefs as part of the solution when it makes sense. We try and do this in a very natural way. It should feel helpful and not overly promotional. And then I think I gave some examples of it. And what I have done is I've dumped a summary of some core products so it can understand what they are and mention them.
But also I remember that in your brief, you're already giving AI kind of a direction of which products or which like Ahrefs things can be mentioned in the article. So yeah, it has overview of the product, so it can come up with its own ideas, but you also specifically guided in the brief that Python for SEO, it makes sense to mention Ahrefs API, because like that's the closest product that we can promote in regards to this topic.
I basically just mentioned the use cases that I think AI might not understand in the brief, because generally it's quite good at saying, oh, mention Keywords Explorer because you've included the word keywords here and that kind of thing.
How to line edit an article draft is the next step.
So this is basically like final copy editing. I found this is not that important because generally AI is obviously quite good at writing things. I'm not going to pick up massive typos and things, but there are a few principles that can be useful. So just making sure that we open each section with the core idea. That's that bluff principle we talked about earlier. Have we addressed the most obvious objections to this idea? So if we make a point, is it worth saying, what is the common objection to this? Should I address that objection and mention why that's not actually a problem? Have we provided sufficient evidence? Have we used dense words? So use novel instead of something new, worldwide instead of on a global scale. I think this is quite useful for getting rid of some of the kind of very AI-flavored text that quite often comes out of AI outputs. Make sure we define any jargon or concepts we talk about. Use parallel formats for our headers. That just basically means the headers follow the same formulation, so it's very easy to read and understand. Is the sentence structure varied to sound pleasing to the reader? That's that classic, writing is music, Gary Provost quote that everyone likes screenshotting and sharing on LinkedIn. Have we included first-person anecdotes and replaced phrases that sound like AI? This isn't X, it's Y. It's more than X, it's Y. Their secret? ? That kind of thing. I added this in very recently because a few of them still bleed through, and it seems to be helping so far.
Internal links. Oh, that one is interesting. How does it add internal links?
Yeah, so this is a very mixed bag. I basically say, read through this article, find 10 relevant places to integrate existing Ahrefs blog content as a link. It does a good job. It does it contextually. It finds a good place to mention it. I'd say about half of the links are completely hallucinated and made up. So I actually had Michael message me. He's in charge of our WordPress setup to point out, hey, there's some weird broken links appearing in these recent articles. What's happened here? And it's because I didn't pay close enough attention and I published hallucinated URLs.
Speaking of reviewing your content, your AI-generated content start to finish.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think what I could do here is I could probably just export a list of actual real blog post URLs, maybe with an AI-generated summary of the page, and ask it to pick from that list, and that might do a better job there.
To be honest, this is something that can be done after the article is published, right? Because in Ahrefs Insight Audit, we have this link opportunities report, which automatically finds which kind of keywords you can link to which articles on your website. So maybe you don't even need to include it right away. Maybe you can ask it to scrape the last, 10 to 20 posts, see what their topics are, see if these topics are mentioned in the article, and maybe suggest linking something, not just link it straight away, but kind of get your confirmation. Again, speaking about reviewing the AI output before publishing it somewhere. Maybe this could be the process. Okay, then we have metadata. I believe it's meta description and URL slug.
Yeah, very easy, very simple. It just saves me, 2 minutes of thought and effort to do that.
If there's something I hate about online publishing is writing a meta description for a post that I wrote. This is such a grueling task for me.
Yeah, exactly that. And then the last stage, just adding WordPress shortcodes. This is still something that takes the team a ton of time, so we've tried a bunch of different ways to automate this. I think we're quite close to this being solved now through some mechanism. But yeah, that's it. That's effectively how to go from a keyword through to a publish-ready article, with the exception, obviously, of images, which are still a really big part of content. I haven't tried to do any kind of, AI-generated imagery for these, because a lot of what we rely on are like screenshots or real-world examples. So that is still something that takes quite a lot of my time and thought to do, to incorporate that into the finished draft.
Well, this looks like a very good process, actually. We already I tried to poke some holes in it, and I think we found some opportunities where something can be simplified, where some steps can be merged, where something can be removed, something that can be done later. I already see some opportunities for automation, specifically the pulling data from AI Content Helper, which studies kind of the articles that you compete with. One thing that we constantly discuss in our content marketing department is if we're adding anything unique to the content, or if we're just creating the content that is abundant on the internet already, if we're adding anything else to the conversation. So I think that could be an interesting part of the process where I'm not sure at which step, maybe in the beginning you would have an interesting idea. Well, your article did add it kind of inherently, because you said look up Patrick's scripts and feature them in the article. So the article doesn't just generically say, SEO for Python for SEO is like a useful tool to be able to use, but it actually gave examples of how our own Patrick, our own teammate, the scripts he wrote and which tasks he's solving, he's automating. I think it adds kind of net new information to the topic of Python for SEO. So I think, I'm not sure how to solve it with AI. Can it kind of point out to you that there is nothing new in this article, everything that you're saying here has been said by someone else, so maybe you should work harder to add something interesting to it? I have no idea how to solve for that, but it seems to me pretty important for creating the content that people would want to follow you for, because people follow our blog and people follow us on social media because we come up with new stuff, not the stuff that they can read anywhere else.
I think potentially you could do something. Obviously, we have the AI Content Helper suggestions, which are a really good summary of how other articles already talk about the topic. Potentially, you could use that as input to a reasoning step with the LLM and say, what is a relevant and interesting part of this topic that has not been covered or discussed here, and consider adding that in. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're not just making something up, you're talking from an actual place of experience, but we talk a lot about information gain in our content, don't we? What can we add in that isn't already out there? I do think LLMs can actually help with that.
Awesome. Ryan, thanks a lot for finally doing it. I've been pushing you to share this process for a while, but I think this podcast interview was a perfect format to do it. So I think we will try to do it regularly as we come up with more different AI automations, because the world of marketing and the world of SEO is changing. And everyone is keen to learn how other teams and other people are implementing AI in their work. So, my question to people listening this, did you enjoy this episode? Do you want us to publish more of that? Leave your comments, subscribe to Ahrefs podcast on different platforms. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks a lot for sticking till the very end of this episode. I guess that means you enjoyed it, right? Because if you did, I have to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or maybe click the follow button if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify. Not sure if you know this, but subscriptions and follows are the strongest signal for these platforms to show this piece of content to more people. So I would really appreciate it if you would follow and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!